Okay, there we go. So we're recording. And I just had one thing I wanted to do to start off with while we're here. This was actually Valentine's Day. So I want to read something that goes with Valentine's, which is St. Paul's epistle to the Corinthians, where he goes through 13 lines. But for here, what's the most important part? We go to the very bottom of this. When I was a child, I talked like a child, I thought like a child, I reasoned like a child. And when I became a man, I set aside the childish ways. Now we see but a dim reflection as in a mirror, then we shall see face to face. Now I know in part, then I shall know fully, even as I am fully known. And now there are three that remain: faith, hope, and love, but the greatest of these is love. So this is our Valentine's thought for the class.
Beautiful, thank you.
I'm going to get out of this.
Yeah,
And
some heart balloons and flowers.
yeah. And we're just going to start with Marjorie has some opening thoughts, and then we're going to hand it over to Barbara with Cheryl. So just a sec, we're still not set with Barbara. There we go.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay, so
You want me to kill the sound?
sure.
We kill this.
And
Okay.
then Margie's gonna make the projection. So I'm just gonna put.
You want to do a full screen? There we go.
Okay, there we go.
Okay. We're just going to start with Marjorie, and then we hand it over to Barbara.
Okay, thank you. I'm gonna give you this so you can be.
So welcome, everybody. We're so glad that you're here. We started to talk about this a couple of weeks ago, and now we've done a new improved presentation, expanding on what we did last June when we did a labyrinth walk for the earth at the church, and Barbara participated live from Hawaii. So it's a really exciting honor to have somebody, from a Hawaiian heritage who can share this traditional practice with us as a part of her family's heritage and experience. And it's a wonderful practice in radical forgiveness. And this is really exciting for me because I was first introduced to this practice with the recording that we had playing as everybody was tuning in a chant group that was run by our minister of music at the Unitarian Church. And so he was the first person that introduced us, or me, to this practice. And he said, you can do it two ways. This is working all on your own. You can call somebody in to work with and just use the phrases that they're set, and just kind of see what comes up. Or you can call somebody in particular, and it doesn't matter whether they're still alive in the flesh or not. Or you can also, another way to do it is to just see who shows up. And what I learned over the years was I would often start with somebody in mind, and it would go as far as it went in that particular time, but often other people would show up that I wasn't expecting. And then that was interesting to see what developed. And our understanding, Bart and I would say, and I don't know that Barbara would necessarily agree with it, we've worked with it together now. Bart's been doing it for about 2 years every day. And we've been doing it together for about a year and a half every day. Some days it's so intense, I think, let's skip it today. But it's basically one of our daily practices that we share together. And it's just amazing who shows up and what happens. When I first did it, I would have tears streaming down my face as I was saying it to my father and he was saying it to me. I've done it with, it's really considered to be a practice of radical forgiveness, which is really about us and not the person that we're forgiving or the situation. I've done it with God. I have felt that, like Job, I had a lot to forgive in my experience with God and life. And it moves things in an unbelievable way. And it moves it in reality. And I've worked at various relationships very intensely, repeatedly, and shifted from absolute hatred of people that I considered to be absolutely evil and gone through various stages with it. I don't want to go into the specifics of the story because it's not about the story, and it does move you beyond the story. But I've seen incredible shifts that I never would have predicted in myself and in the other people. And then I've had encounters with people that I wasn't even thinking about. I wasn't even working on that relationship. And they would show up in real life and there would be a different dynamic. And I had gone from maybe not absolute hatred, but a lot of anger to neutral, which wouldn't be a great place to be with somebody I love and care about. But coming from hatred, it was a big improvement. And then it actually turned into peace. I didn't want to hang out with that person, but twice somebody showed up that I realized I had work to do with. And both times I turned around to say something to them and they were gone.
Mhm.
And then I said, well, if that happens again, I'm definitely going to speak to them because I'm being invited to do that. And I never saw them again. Maybe I will, but I realized then that I wasn't even consciously working on that relationship, but there was spillover into that relationship that it shifted further. I think I got as far as I needed to get in that relationship just by running into him twice by mistake. And the second time, actually, it was on the tip of my tongue to turn and just say hello. That's all I really needed to say. I couldn't have done that a year before. I just could not have come that far in forgiveness. And after that, I learned that the CD that I realized that the CD I had listened to for years and years and done it at home with that recording, it just makes it very vivid for me, was produced by this group in Australia that comes to Connecticut once a year or so. And it's considered to be a whole school of gurus. There's one senior guru and she has a right hand woman and a left hand man. And there's a couple of levels of gurus who often travel here with her. And one of their services to the world is music. And so they had done, and that was the group that we were just listening to. Sushumna is the name of the channel that the Kundalini flows up along the spine. And that's the name of their group. And they've done a lot of teachings and healings with us. And I ended up doing a lot of one-to-one healings with the lead singer. So that was just this odd connection to then have an actual personal relationship with the woman. And then the center that they come to, it's a healing center in Monroe, actually hosted a workshop on it was somebody who had learned it in Hawaii. And he was part of the presentation team, sharing it with the whole group. And he talked more about the history than I had ever heard before. And we'll see that in the PowerPoint. But the doctor who has really kind of put it on the map is, I believe he's a psychiatrist, he might be a psychologist in Hawaii, who emptied out a whole ward of extremely violent and psychotic people, patients, who nobody could deal with. You know, they were just so out there, nobody could deal with them. There was really no healing available for them. They were sometimes just in chains, you know, to protect the staff from them. And he worked with this practice, not with them, not physically in the same room with them. They would be off in their room, and he would do it in their office. And we have a video from him working within himself. And so that's when I really came to understand that it works through the unity, it works through the oneness of the universe. And so we can work with ourselves as like a stand-in for whoever we're working to forgive. He explains that much better. But it's not Buddhist, it's not Christian, it's not anything that we're familiar with, but it's an example of a mystical practice with an incredibly practical application. And in Hawaii, traditionally, families and close groups do it together with a practitioner. And it's to move into this place of radical forgiveness. And because most judgment, this is a Jungian concept, is projection. When you're feeling extremely judgmental about somebody or against somebody, it's because of something within yourself that you're judging. So it's an interesting mirror to see how judgmental you feel. It doesn't mean that we should let all the criminals run around, you know, hurting everybody. It has nothing to do with that. But a couple of weeks ago, we did kind of an inventory with ourselves and each other about what we found forgivable and what we found impossible to forgive. For me, it was very hard to forgive people who weren't sorry and who hadn't stopped doing the evil that they were doing. I always thought about Nazis in this context, but the evil goes on everywhere, and it goes on today as well. And it can be very, very systemic, you know, more than we realize goes on in, you know, various fields. I think particularly in the legal field and the medical field myself. And my family has been very hurt by that. But I was damaging myself with all of my anger. It may have been understandable, but it wasn't helping anybody. I think anger can be good when it's channeled in a productive direction, if you can work with it as energy, you know, for transformation. And I am political, and I feel that, you know, there is change that is needed in the world, and if we can come from a place of compassion within ourselves, for ourselves, and for, you know, what we are maybe unconsciously recognizing in other people that we're judging, we're much more likely to come to a resolution. And what we are finding is it creates this unbelievable space in our lives and in our relationships. And you have shifts that you never would have thought were possible. And I see this in Bart's relationships. I'll let him speak to that if he wants to later. And in my relationships around me, of just this amazing kind of letting go. But as I say, I still am addressing the issues. So it's not denial, it's not sweeping it under the rug. I'm more able to be more productive because I'm not just reacting and reacting emotionally, which we can get just stuck in a treadmill. And I do feel very strongly that was part of what was making me sick. And I'm just really starting to come out of it now. So it's in our own interest. And it doesn't mean, as I said, that you free all the crazy criminals. Although this doctor doing this did empty out the ward of people. And it wasn't through giving them one-on-one therapy. It was working within himself on their behalf and on his own behalf. And if everything is connected and everything is one, we can do that. We can use ourselves as like a proxy for the other person. And what he would do is find the part of himself that could be driven to the extreme behaviors that was exhibited by the patients. I think that's a tremendous challenge to be able to accomplish. And I've seen I could be driven to violence. I was raised as a pacifist. I wasn't allowed to even hit back at first when I was a kid. And then I was getting into so much trouble in the public school I was going to in New York City because I was tall. I got picked on a lot. So I asked my father finally, if somebody hits me first, do I have permission to hit them back? And finally he said, well, you could try a few things first. I said, okay, but if I go to the teacher and I do this, I do that, can I? He said, yes, you can, and make sure you win. But that was against the grain that I was raised with. It was don't even hit back. Don't you ever hit first, but don't even hit back was really the way I was introduced into this life. But we have to find a balance, which I think just becomes more and more possible with a practice like this. So I want to say it's good to have a check-in with yourself, really, in the beginning to see where you're at. What do you think is forgivable? What isn't forgivable to you? But then if you do explore this practice, check in from time to time to see where the needle is moving for you, because that's more that you're able to forgive within yourself. And that's what heals the collective, which is the goal. This is I think a path to peace. I think it's an incredible tool that I wish more groups would explore using. So with that, we're very blessed and honored to have somebody who really has a direct cultural connection to this wonderful exercise to introduce it to us. And we're talking about, maybe we could try practicing it and having some kind of an ongoing place for it in our lives and as a group.
Marjorie, that was beautiful. And what I have to say is more academic. I don't think I could have said anything better than you did. Thank you so much. And I'm going to bounce off that a little bit and say, if anyone has any experience that they want to interject with this, maybe you have no experience with Ho'oponopono, but I'm sure most of us have experience with forgiveness. Okay, I'm just going to reiterate some of this and quickly go through what we went through before. We know that Ho'oponopono is an ancient Hawaiian practice of forgiveness and reconciliation. I don't think anyone can really put a finger on it and say this is where it began in history. We do know that it was possibly back to the time of Atlantis, Lemuria, and the High Vedic culture. It belongs to a system of Hawaiian teachings called the Huna, the Hu meaning knowledge and Na meaning wisdom. Okay, when we say Ho'oponopono, if we break it down, we say that Ho means to make, Opono to right or correct. So Ho'oponopono literally means to make rightly right. And to make rightly right means to join yourself first with one's higher power and the source of all being. This has been used for centuries to correct, restore, and support and maintain peaceful relationships between people, spirit, and nature. It sounds very simple because there's 4 lines to the mantra, but it really is an elegant and effective practice in which people can arrive at unity, inner peace, and return to harmony. As Marjorie said, historically, this was a traditional healing ritual that was practiced as a family conference or community conference. Participants would gather and they'd speak of misunderstandings. They would openly talk about basically what was bugging them, what they needed to have fixed, what they could do to fix the situation. And this was all done in the presence of a mediator. Mediator's job was to keep it moving through a problem-solving process of the forgiveness and reconciliation. It begins with a communal prayer, and the prayer is basically to join each member with the source of God, the ancestors, and to seek help and insight and strength for the process, because it got to be a very long process. Sometimes these things would go on for hours or maybe days until they could come at a peaceful resolution and forgive one another. Mutual requests for and guarantees of forgiveness are spoken. That's very important. And like I said, the members speak their piece, they speak their truth, they talk about unfulfilled needs, injustice, rule infringements, pain and expectations. And remember, this was kind of a tribal society. I think you could call it tribal society. I don't really know another word for it. And this had a lot of survival value. So it was very, very important for the culture to come together and forgive and repair. The 4 praises of the Ho'oponopono are spoken, chanted, sung in unison, or repeated until forgiveness is given and reconciliation is reached. The 4 praises or mantras is I'm sorry, please forgive me, I love you, and thank you. And then the matter is considered settled with the gods, angels, the ancestors, and the participants. And you'll see in a moment, a very important person in Hawaii was this woman who was we call it kahuna, spiritual healer, teacher. She was a master teacher of Ho'oponopono, and she has been revered by the Hawaiian people and actually been called the gift of the Hawaiian people and other things because of her work with Ho'oponopono, her work with teaching, and her work with remaining the cultural implications of Ho'oponopono and preserve the Hawaiian culture in itself. This is a lady. This is Morna Malakua Siminiona, and she's going to share with us the original prayer of Ho'oponopono. We call it the pule, the prayer that's said before we start chanting the mantra and afterwards, so that we can leave in peace.
Ho'oponopono, original Hawaiian prayer from Morna Malamaku Simino. Divine Creator, Father, Mother, Son, all in one. If I, my family, my relatives and ancestors, offend your family, relatives and ancestors, in thoughts, words, facts and actions, from the beginning of our creation to the present moment, we ask for your forgiveness. Let that cleanse, purify, release and cut all the memories, blockages, energies, and negative vibrations. Transmute these undesirable energies into pure light, and so it is.
Can people hear? People hear what she's saying?
Yeah.
that few words of opening. I'm sorry. Forgive me. I love you. I'm grateful.
That's precious.
I declare myself at peace with all the people on earth and with whom I have outstanding debts for this moment and in all time. For everything that I do not like in my present life, I'm sorry. Forgive me. I love you. I'm grateful. I release all those from whom I believe I am receiving harm and ill treatment because they simply give me back what I did to them before in some past life. I'm sorry. Forgive me. I love you. I'm grateful. Although it is difficult for me to forgive someone, I am the one who asks for the forgiveness of that someone now, for this instant, and at all times, for everything that I do not like in my present life. I'm sorry. Forgive me. I'm grateful for the sacred place that I inhabit day by day, and with which I do not feel comfortable. I'm sorry. Forgive me. I love you. I'm grateful for the difficult relationships of which I only kept bad memories. I'm sorry. Forgive me. I'm, I'm grateful for everything that I do not like in my present life, in my past life, in my work, and what is around me. Bringing me what is contributing to my scarcity. I'm sorry. Forgive me. I love you. I'm grateful. If my physical body experiences anxiety, worry, guilt, fear, sadness, pain, I speak and think, man, I love you. I am grateful for the opportunity to release you and me. I'm sorry. Forgive me. I love you. I'm grateful. Right now, I affirm that I love you. I think of my emotional health and at all of my loved ones. I love you for my needs and to learn to wait without anxiety, without fear. I recognize my memories here at this moment. I'm sorry. I love you. My contribution to the healing of the earth, beloved Mother Earth, who I am if I, my family, my relatives and ancestors mistreat you with thoughts, words, facts and actions from the beginning of our creation to the present moment. I ask your forgiveness. Let that cleanse, purify, release and cut all the memories, blockages, energies, and negative vibrations. Transmute these undesirable energies into pure light, and so it is. To conclude, I say that this prayer is my door, my contribution to your emotional health, which is the same as mine. So, be well. And as you heal, I say that I'm sorry for the painful memories I share with you. I ask for your forgiveness, for uniting my path to yours for healing. I thank you for being here in me. I love you for being who you are. Thank you for spending these moments with me. Please hit the thumbs up, and if this video has been of use to you, also share with who you believe will benefit from it. Hit the
She has been actually dubbed Hawaiian's treasure. We talked about the 4 phrases, and we talked about, some people call them magical, but it's really more of a prayer or a mantra. And these operate, as she indicated, through time and space, beyond cause and effect, from unity between the beginning of time till the present, when she's saying the prayer, or whoever's saying the prayer. So you move from disconnection with someone or something to joining together, and you say those 4 sentences. I'm sorry. When you say you're sorry, you recognize and accept responsibility for your actions, your thoughts and emotions that have caused conflict in your actuality. We'll talk about that in a moment. And you perceive the suffering, you perceive that you're suffering, and that connects you to me and my feelings. And I no longer reject the problem, but I view it as a learning task. You don't condone or excuse the behaviors of others, but you, through the process, can transcend victimization to empowerment. Please forgive me. Please forgive me for having, through myself or my ancestors, caused the hurt. Please forgive me for having acted in a way contrary to the divine laws of harmony and love. The words, please forgive me, are said as a call to make amends to your higher self and the universe. I love you. Ho'oponopono to me is love in action. Forgiveness and healing come from understanding of unity in the world. Nothing can occur in our world without creating a resonance in the external world. I think that's why that's so powerful. One of the reasons it's so powerful, as we say this prayer and we feel the feelings, we are extending those to the external world, and it resonates with the external world. Perhaps connect with the person that you're saying this prayer for or with. And of course, we know that we can only influence the external world when we express a deep desire to be our center and live in our harmony, our truth with humanity, God, and nature. Thank you. I'm going to give thanks to the power of forgiveness, and thank you is the opportunity to show gratitude to your higher self and the universe for allowing the clearing of your negative thoughts, actions, and emotions. I actually say this prayer at night when I say my other prayers, and I say it as a prayer of gratitude for any ripple I could have put in the pond of humanity around me to help heal or to heal myself. And I also say it as a prayer for gratitude for all the good things that are happening in the world. There are people out there who are striving to make the world better in some very dark places. I'm not going to go through this. I'm just going to tell you that all of this happened before, as far as, the process, the practice being used as a community or a family group before Ms. Simeone took it and began teaching it as what she calls the self-identity. With the self-identity, it means that she recognizes and takes total responsibility for the feelings that are created in her by some encounter with someone else or something else that has distressed her. And she wants forgiveness for that. She wants not only forgiveness for that, for herself personally, so she can begin to heal, but so that the other person can begin to heal too. We talked about the ripple effect. I feel that if I'm sitting here saying that I love you, please forgive me, that somehow I'm connected to that other person or that other deity that can say to me, maybe you can forgive me for my part of the interaction also. Dr. Hewlin, who we talked about, Margie talked about, was a clinical psychologist who was asked to go to the state, thank you, Mental Health Institute for the Criminally Insane. He was asked to go there to see if he could help. These prisoners were off the wall. They were so bad that the turnover at the hospital was almost continuous. People said that people who worked at the hospital would often take sick days just so they could try to recover from the trauma they felt of being there. They were very violent. They were people that seemingly could not live in society. This hospital was maybe the worst of the worst. Anyway, Dr. Lou was assigned to heal these mentally ill people in this facility. He never had personal contact with the patients. The only contact he had is like some witnesses say that in the morning he'd come in with his very peaceful countenance and his joy for life, and he'd walk the ward on the way to his office. Once he got in his office, he would review the records, and whatever he was reviewing for a specific person at that time, he would begin to have feelings himself coming up from that review. He could feel anger, he could feel rage, he could feel sadness. He talks about often just sitting there crying because he was so connected to the feelings of this person. They became his feelings. So he would say over and over again, he did nothing to immediate contact with these patients, that he healed himself. He had healed the feelings that he was feeling. And with this and through this process, they experienced healing. It's really important. He calls the process cleaning. When he forgives himself and he works through this process, he calls it as a type of cleaning or cutting the association with these feelings so that they can become healed. He believes that everything we see and experience is nothing more than our individual and collective memories. Sounds a little like Carl Jung, doesn't it? He believes that healing happens with a divine inspiration. Total responsibility for your life means that everything in your life, which you see, which you hear, taste, touch, or experience, is your responsibility because it is in your life. So any encounter you have with somebody else, or in his case, it's encounter with the records, changed because he was simply in that life at the moment. So he believes, and he says that in a literal sense, the entire world is your creation. Nothing exists except the projections within yourself. I'm going to play a clip from him now. He's kind of a character. I have the honor of going to a couple of classes with him online, and he's a character. I like him very much. See what you think.
We should also say that it's his words and his voice, but it's being portrayed through other people. As the example.
Oh, you hear his voice behind when the interview first starts.
Dr. Laird, could you tell us a little of the background and experience that you had working in the institutions?
I'm a clinical psychologist. The people I work with, called the people who are either killed or raped or someone. These are people I've had up to for 5 years. And one of the things I discovered in working with them is that their problems are we are willing to look just at ourselves and really release the judgments we have on them. They really get well. Just by working on ourselves. So what I do, I used to do at the institution. I did not have therapy, didn't talk to anybody. All of the work I did at home, I did to myself in the beginning, asking what is it that I needed to do to clear myself to patient and then what he felt would be right to do with the patient. So I didn't talk to therapy. Just do it myself in the beginning, asking what needed to be done. Is that people are coming to our lives, or people will come into our lives so that we can let go of whatever judgment, whether it's our children, or whether it's our parents, or whether it's the people that we quote work with, whether it's people who are mentally ill. They come into our lives because we have created some problems with them. By our releasing the judgments and expectations, the problem will them to get better. So it's not them, it's always us. give you an example of that. When I worked at the Hawaiian State Hospital, one of the judgments I had was that staff would be verbally abusive to patients who would call me crazy, schizoid, and that kind of thing. And I have a lot of stuff about that. I thought it was fun. And so one day I was watching staff calling a patient crazy, and my judgment was coming out of this voice said, "Do you know that cleaned up your judgment that would stop?" And so as I began to work on my judgment of people having judgment about other people, I began to work on it. It took a year. We don't have any more. I didn't have to talk to the personality for myself. Just me, not out there. Out there is just a reflection of me. So the problem basically is not a physical problem. The physical problem is only the symptom of it. But we nervous is the cause, which are the subconscious that hurts and the pain that is generated. Instead of dealing with the symptoms like dieting and all that, what to do is we gotta go to the problem. That once we erase the hurts and pain, whatever is in the computer, the disease and it'll live. My father has done that, so I had an opportunity to ask the divinity what I needed to do. I have to clean up my relationship with it, and I clean my relationship with my father. Because all I do is talk to the
So it's not necessarily to
No.
involve him.
No, so I asked the divinity, what is it that, since I'm concerned, that means that I have a tie with my father. If I let my father go, the divinity can do it for it. But it's just between you and me, not between me and my father. Because only the divinity can release me. So if I talk to my father, he can't release me. So I talk to the divinity. That's basically what it is. It's between, I want to say between man and that process.
Couple of things that were important to remember there is, number one, he was a student, actually the star student of Dr. Simeone, and he carried on her work after she retired and then after she passed away. And the other thing is that you no longer needed a mediator. You were now empowered by this shift in the process to work on the forgiveness miracle, if you will, yourself. You don't need a second person. All you need to do is have the divine that's within, your willingness to work on the problem, and your willingness to hold the memory or the thought of the person that you're looking to forgive in your memory during the process. Have, as Marjorie says, watch them come in, and you can talk directly to the divine, directly to that person, or possibly a thing that needs correcting. I'm looking for a sentence because I want to get it right, and I can't find it. And he mentioned it, the Hawaiian belief of illness. Go ahead and see if you can find it there. Keep going. Sorry. Basically, Hawaiians believe that the body and the mind and the spirit work together, as many of us do with different religions or different beliefs, and that sickness comes from not living in harmony with those, and not living in harmony with nature, spirit, persons around you. Once that harmony comes together, once that unity is granted, your life changes. You no longer have those negative feelings towards that person, towards yourself. I think that's one of the biggest changes with self-identity, was that you You believe to take responsibility for your actions, your feelings, and your beliefs, and how that might affect another person. It's not that we change the other person in any way. We change ourselves, those feelings that we have within ourselves, the feelings that that person might evoke. And so it can be practiced as a meditation or a prayer, or you'll see later in many other modalities. Okay, I'm getting off. So I want to say one thing. If you wonder about the power of forgiveness, you can look it up. There are many studies out there. Dr. James, the University of Hawaii, found that those who practice Ho'oponopono have a better experience forgiving others and less likely to carry around the burden of unforgiveness, and to boost your ability to accept gratitude. I think that's important. I know that's important to me. There are a lot of modalities out there that use Ho'oponopono now. It's gone worldwide. Dr. Hugh Lin teaches all over the world. When I say caveat, lost cultural meaning, it's not just simply repeating the words, but the intention behind it. Keep mindful of the intention while you're doing it. And it still practices healing within a family or group, but now we also have this second option of the self-identity, or you can combine the two. There's no reason why you can't use both of them in your life. Cultural meaning and the meaning of Ho'oponopono, the self-identity is always that you recognize healing others becomes through healing yourself. I can't say that enough. Here's another way of saying Ho'oponopono. This is done by an Asian group, and I think it's quite beautiful. We can stop it if you just want it. Just raise your hand. It's okay, but I think it's quite beautiful. They say these things so eloquently.
Sorry, please forgive me. I thank you and I love you. I'm sorry, please forgive me. I thank you and I silence sent to us all. Sorry, please forgive me. I thank you and I love you. Sorry. Please forgive me. Sorry. Please forgive me. I love you.
So, I need you to know that this is an emotional process, and it will be emotional probably while you're in the process and until you get that place of healing, or that space that is just kind of an empty space and peaceful space, until you can get to a place that maybe you don't need to get to exactly unconditional love, but you'll get to a place where you can have forgiveness and come back to it when you need to. It can be an ongoing process. If I may, I'll share a little bit to you. I had an experience in my life where I knew I could have no more children, and I had trained in psychology to specialize in women's problems, and especially abused people. You know, you go into the homes and you follow them through the whole process until they get resolution of their case and everything. Never thought I'd work with children. But then I had this, call it what you will, divine inspiration, that there would be more children of my life. And at first it was kind of like, you know, you say a cuss word and you say that can't possibly be true. And because I felt that it couldn't possibly be true, or whatever I was feeling, I was angry at God for about 2 years. And I had to go through this process for about 2 years before I came to a point that I was actually thrown into a situation in a school district where I was introduced to working with children. And that's where I spent my next 20 years. If one would have asked me when I started out if that would be the way I'd end up, I'd probably tell you no. And part of the process of working as a psychologist in a school district is you test children for learning disabilities and emotional problems. And then we have this, what's called an ARD meeting, which is parents, administrators, teachers that work with the child. Sometimes they can bring in an advocate. And many times I heard within the district, and there were in the papers, that there were large disputes and court cases against the professionals who did the teaching, or threats by the parents, or just a number of unpleasant things. And in all humility, I can tell you, in 20 years, with the process of forgiveness, even though I go into there sometimes after having talked to the child, talked to the parent, talked to the teachers, not really understanding the parents or liking them very much, or wanting to forgive them for what I perceive that they did to their children. But I could forgive, and I truly believe that through that process, I never had a problem in 20 years. I was never sued. I was never challenged in any profound way. And I think, to me, that was through the process of forgiveness, because I thought some really bad stuff about some of those parents. So that's how it's helped change my life. And it continues to grow throughout the world. There are more and more advocates of it. It's linked with the process of meditation, self-healing, of course, subliminal access. They have a lot of tapes out there that you could listen to calm you or put you to sleep. You can use Ho'oponopono for journaling. I've seen it used as a letter writing exercise, in singing or chanting groups, and just simply as an expression for gratitude for others and the world. But again, just my thought is those who choose to use Ho'oponopono are cognizant of what came before the practice and how it's meant to be used, and that you go into it with a feeling of gratitude for others and some positive emotions to counteract the negative emotions that you will probably feel throughout this process until you reach a point of forgiveness. Ho'oponopono, I've seen advertised and on the web use for different things that I don't believe it was ever meant to use, but that's not for me to judge. So maybe you can look out there and judge for yourself. Anyway, that's it. Thank you for your time and for joining us. Any comments, discussions, any experiences you'd like to share?
I can say that in my experience of after you taught the first Ho'oponopono, I started doing the chants, and I definitely had a profound experience, and I feel like it's benefited me so much. And I don't have any direct experiential example I can give, but I can just see the shift in myself of letting go of some of the things that I was just dragging around with me. And I freed myself by forgiving myself for some of the things that I was, remorseful for. And yeah, it was amazing. And I want to develop a deeper practice of this, a daily practice, and add it to my meditation time.
So when we learn to forgive ourselves, some wonderful things can happen.
Yeah, it's pretty powerful. There's a lot of stuff in this, so simple, but yet, and it even makes me feel like there is a connection when we talk about ripples and things like that. It shows the connection of physics.
Mhm. Yeah. Yeah, good.
Find that fascinating.
Okay,
Thank
all
you.
right.
Lovely.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Barbara. It was wonderful.
Thank you. Well, I'd say give it a try.
Yeah.
What can it hurt, right?
There's some really, if you look, there's more really good videos and recordings, that a lot of different musical groups have made musical, chants and songs with the phrases, with the mantra. And it can be just incredibly liberating. And I've moved through things that I didn't think I would ever move through. And I think it would have killed me, really, if I hadn't. If I hadn't started to let go of the bitterness and the hurt. It's toxic, it's toxic. And it's one of the main things that has the woman from Australia that I worked with the most. I filed some court papers at one point. She said all my guides on the other side were rejoicing because I had come so far in my process and retained my humanity, that I wasn't completely bitter. I wasn't completely shut down, that my heart was still capable of feeling and opening, and that I could still care about people and so on. So I just want to say, if you can, look for it. We'd like to see if there's a way that we can work with it together, if people are open to that. It's something that you can practice within yourself or with members of your family, close friends. I've done it with absolute enemies, and I don't feel that I have any enemies at this point. I have some people I would say I still find them distasteful, but there were
That's a
lessons
long,
there.
that's
Pardon me?
probably a long way from, I said, that's probably a long way from your feelings for them at first.
Yes, yes. And I can say, well, somehow it was all necessary. Somehow it was all fated, and as long as I can survive it, I guess it'll make me stronger and kinder and better. And I just need some freedom from it, and it's the best way I think that I've encountered. And as the comment said in the beginning, it doesn't mean that you lose your awareness of what you don't have to go into denial to do it.
I think denial is counterproductive to the process. I think you have to go through it to get there. And I think really one of the most useful things I've seen with it with others is they have developed the practice to where they can forgive themselves of things that they have, as the Bible says, trespassed against others. I don't think there's anyone, at least I haven't met anyone who hasn't felt that they had something that deserves self-forgiveness.
Yeah. Yes. Well, thank you, Barbara.
Well, thank you for the opportunity.
You bring it to life in a really lovely way.
Thank you. Okay.
I'm just, I would encourage everyone to go try this. It sounds so simple, and yet you can see it can be sometimes the simpler it is, the better it is. So,
You want to have another discussion, or if you want to have someone to go through the process with, and I think Marjorie and I together, we can help.
right.
Is that mantra that you were playing before available online?
Pardon me? I'm sorry, I didn't hear you, Steve.
What was playing in the beginning earlier, the recording, is that available online?
Yes, it is. Yes,
Yeah.
it is.
Here,
And
I can just play this. You can hear it.
This is the lead singer. So I've done a lot of
They can't see screen share. No. So that's,
It fades in and out. Yeah, you can't hear it real well.
yeah, the thing, we have a direct fiber optic connection here, so we don't experience the same buffering problems that Cheryl had. That's why the things were fading in and out. I realize it's too late. We could have done it from here. So,
Oh, but it sounds like it was happening now anyway. even
Yeah.
with us playing it. We'll send out the links. We'll send out the presentation, and we'll put together the links for everybody so you can, if it's not translated through two systems, it might be clearer for you.
yeah, Yeah.
But that recording is certainly available. And there's quite a bit written about it. There's books, and there's quite a bit out there.
so, I'm just gonna, go ahead, Barbara.
I see you're going to do Buddhism and meditation. I met it through a class on Zoom, Tibetan monk, and he calls himself Happy Bartholomew. He uses Ho'oponopono with Buddhist meditation and the singing bowls and gongs. It's really another application, and it's lovely.
Sounds nice.
Right. Yeah, I said we would just touch on meditation here because I thought it was a natural tie-in. But the the one thing I've noticed about meditation is I run into people who say, I just don't get it. Okay, I go ahead and I try and meditate, and I just can't get all of these thoughts out of my head. My breathing goes all over the place. I fall asleep. I like, what's the big, what's going on? Why do you keep talking about meditation? And so, I asked Bruce to put together some thoughts, which you're going to come to, but it's so simple that just like Ho'oponopono, but people have huge problems with it, with being able to meditate. Bruce was nice enough to send some videos on this woman who went off to, check this out, a 3-year, 3-month, 3-day, 3-hour meditation retreat. 3 years.
Wow.
And I mean, I asked myself, like, does she have a job? Like, what, how could she go off for 3 years, 3 months and 3 days and go do this? But she just signed up immediately. There was half a dozen of them that did this, and it was amazing. It was, for her, it was life-changing. But the thing about this is, it really is as simple as it says here. I've meditated a fair amount over the last 20 years, and I honestly find within 5 seconds I can completely zone out or tune out on all of the yak that's going on around us. Okay, and just go into this zone where it's just incredibly quiet and centered, and it's addictive to me. I enjoy doing it every day. I do it multiple times every day, but so it goes. But the thing that I wanted to touch on here is just go ahead one more slide. That assumes now we're all meditated, but Bruce was nice enough to put together some talking points on all of this. So what we've talked about before is the notion of duality, or having a mind and having a spirit, and in reality there's really non-duality. There really is only one entity that's there, and you're trying to link up with that one spirit, that one soul that you have in you. The main quality that this ancient mind has is love and compassion. It's all consuming, and the love is a love that's indescribable. Now, Bruce maybe can chime in here. You put together a set of words here on the path of the Buddha. What I don't want to put words in your mouth. What were you thinking of here with these set of things? Sili, samadhi, pana, and so forth. Oh, you're on mute. You're still on. Yeah, there you go.
Yeah, if you want to really make progress, I mean, meditation is very critical, but there's a specific scenario of unfoldment, and it has to start with, well, the Buddhists call it sila, but sila actually means cooling the mind, and to cool the mind, you can't do bad things like killing somebody or stealing or bad language, because if you engage in any of those activities, the mind will not settle down. So the first beginning is, well, they usually translate it as morality, but it's actually cooling the mind. And morality implies being judgmental, and that doesn't work either. And then you have samadhi, which means concentrating. And that's where the meditation comes in. But you can only do meditation after you've settled some of the negative activities. And then after a lot of meditation, what happens naturally is that there's a deeper wisdom in the mind that simply arises. And it arises from a deeper part of your mind spontaneously. And it changes everything. All reality changes. So, but talking about meditation, I mean, it is hard at the beginning. You can't, the verbalization goes on and stuff like that. I just kind of want to give another perspective on it. Like basically, everyone has two kinds of mind that in a sense are kind of in conflict with each other. In other words, you have a house divided against itself. There's the ancient mind, which is like you've had thousands and thousands of lifetimes. Basically, from the Buddhist perspective, if you're born as a human being, that means you've evolved a lot and you have a lot of merit. But it also means you've had thousands and thousands of lifetimes. And there's a buildup of wisdom, that deeper part of your mind that is actually there for you to find and have. And then you have the conditioned mind, and the conditioned mind is basically what you've learned from being a child, your family conditioning from society. But in the meantime, you still have this ancient mind has enormous amount of wisdom, is basically transcendent of all your difficult experience already. The wisdom is already there. So the wisdom you find at the end is something you've had all along. So the exercise is to transcend the conditioned mind and be in union with the mind that's been there all along. That's basically actually what happens. And there's and the other thing is that everyone is different. So everyone is moving through the universe in a different way. So everyone is different. So finding the path through meditation is largely finding out what works for you. And the wisdom is actually that you've had forever. So that's kind of the overview. So, but in meditation, like it takes quite a while to calm the mind. But with a lot of meditation, you can get into a place where your breathing almost stops. Like the in-breath and the out-breath are very short, and they're about 10 seconds apart. So you have all this space between the in-breath and out-breath and the out-breath and the in-breath. And there's a lot of exercise, but the mind goes completely calm, and there's no verbalization or anything. So, and that's a valuable tool for your mind to have, because then you don't lose the focus. You get to a place where you catch everything, and you notice everything that happens in the mind, and it doesn't wander off at all. And that's the kind of the key to finding the deeper part of your mind that understands all these things already. So it's and of course what you find is that the deeper mind is full of incredible love and compassion, and the wisdom arises instantly, and it's always perfect. That's one of the other things that you find when you go into a reunion, which is what eventually happens. You don't make mistakes anymore. The mind already knows what's perfect, what's actually really there. So the meditation is an exercise in finding that deeper, much deeper part of the mind. Now, when you go into the teaching, they break that down into duality and non-duality. Duality is basically means there's a self. And this is where the part of the mind believes that what it thinks is real. And then, it becomes agitated, and everything becomes very judgmental and so on. But in the end, you actually find out that that part of the mind doesn't actually exist. There's a important understanding in Buddhism of emptiness. And basically, that's the realization where you find out that all the negatives never existed in the first place. All the negatives simply disappear, and you're in union with the deeper mind that's been there forever. And that's sort of the goal of meditation and the Buddhist practice. I like to kind of mention another aspect though of the deeper Buddhism, and where not that many people know about it or understand it very well. And that is the experience of having a guru. Now, the guru I had was in that reality already. And I had the good fortune of being telepathic. So I had a very profound connection with that person. And the biggest thing, by far, the biggest thing he taught me directly, mind to mind, was the nature of love mind. A powerful, unsurpassed ability of love itself. It's just, and it just, what happens is when you experience it directly from a guru, you can't really go there because you find yourself in tears in a minute if you go too far in it. So that's kind of a summary of in a sense, the Buddhist path. And the big one that takes the longest time is the meditation part, because there's many patterns in the mind. Talking about patterns in the mind, you come to the realization and insight that every negative, every pattern in the mind has a cause. There's an original cause, and that means it can be transcended and it will end. So I don't know, how's that, Bart?
Oh, that's great, Bruce. I mean, the thing that I simply put a different spin on to all of this was the physics interpretation. Bruce has said repeatedly, when you can achieve this level of enlightenment, there's this incredible certainty, this incredible truth that you see of everything around you. And in the world of physics, when they were dealing with what happens on the microcosm, on the quantum scale, the atomic scale, they realized that the correct way to describe everything in the universe was through something called a wave function. And this wave function encompasses all paths, all possible outcomes that could be. But then you actually go down, the universe goes down a particular path. And that's the certainty that comes out of this, what drives it all. So when you link up into this notion of enlightenment, you're actually sensing, again, this universal wave function that governs how everything behaves in the entire universe. And because of that, that's why you have the certainty, and this drives you on this path of compassion and love and kindness. Again, these are just words. What Bruce said is just perfectly valid. I'm just giving you a spin courtesy of 20th century physics for a different set of words, but the words don't change the true underlying meaning. And so it goes. The other thing is that the inner and the outer, the fact that what you think is really going on, you're caught up in the now. And there's the past, there's the future, but we live in the now. The now is here. Well, that's all very interesting, but when you actually can meditate enough to achieve this notion of enlightenment, to achieve non-duality, then you realize there is no now, or that what you think is going on around you is not that at all. And that's a deeper truth, but that requires a lot of practice and so forth. Bruce, anything else you want to add to this?
Well, that's one of the main things about it, is that trying to interpret reality through the outer, through intellect and that sort of thing, isn't how you actually find it. it's the whole reality is realized from an inner unfoldment. It's the mind unfolding itself. And it goes deep enough where you actually find out what's really there. And that is one of the big things about Buddhism, is that it's really a unfoldment of the inner mind. And basically you find out that what you think is really happening in terms of the outer, it's not true at all, because the deeper mind has a totally different understanding of reality. And the thing is, it's not just a little different, it's really different, because the nonverbal understanding of reality and the deeper mind and what it really is and what love really is and compassion, what is it really, how deep it really goes, is all inner realization. You can't, it's so nonverbal, so vast, you can't even begin to articulate it. And that's the other person has a similar experience. Well, then you say, oh yeah, I know what you're talking about, right? But otherwise it's just no go. You know, you just can't even begin to try and understand it from an outer perspective, the way you can from the inner. It's a very important distinction to make.
The other thing to keep in mind is it's dynamic, that all of this is evolving around you all the time. And so you're deepening in a very, very rich way all of these ideas and concepts. The thing that we touched on earlier was the fact that it appears from modern physics that we're in a 26-dimensional space. And if you think about that for a second, we can think of 3 dimensions for space and 1 for time, if you think of time as a dimension. But what Bruce is talking about is you're starting to sense some of these other dimensions that are there, and they're making up this incredible different world that's all around us that leads you to these sorts of statements. So they're not inconsistent. But again, they're just words that are being attached to these notions. And I think this has been discovered again and again and again. We're not the first ones to try and raise this, but it's a key thing to keep in mind, is what you see around you is really not what's going on.
Yeah. And the other thing you have to keep in mind is that everyone is on a path to discovering their own deeper mind. Everyone is doing that in one way or another. And the underlying movement of it is already reality. So it's like everyone is trying to find a path to find who they really are, which has been there all along. So it's more like that.
The thing that has gone through my head is simply, we have these bodies, and the bodies come and go. The ancient mind, the soul, the spirit incarnates again and again and again. It's immortal. But the thing is, why is it doing this? Why is it going through this? It seems to be a symbiosis between this spirit, this ancient mind, and this body, which creates this conditioned mind. And yet maybe the ancient mind can't, get the same experiences unless it links up with this body. But then the ancient mind has all this wisdom, and the mind that we have isn't taking advantage of that to live in the world around us. So there's just an ongoing process of education to try and see, what is it all about? Why are we doing this? Why are we going through this? What are your thoughts on this, Bruce?
Well, basically, when you start having the kind of insight, especially into compassion and love, but you also have a comprehensive understanding of the nature of the reality itself. And the thing is that it's a dynamic. What's happening is that reality is already unfolding. So my own experience of it is that I can wake up in the morning and my world has changed. It's already moved ahead all on its own. And it takes me a couple hours to figure out what's happened. And then all of a sudden you're in a whole new universe that's deeper than it ever was before. So it's like reality is unfolding itself. So when everyone is aspiring and moving towards a deeper understanding of themselves, of what love is, why you're here, and all that is reality of everyone. Everyone is advancing in a profound way, because the deeper mind is already that reality. So your own reality, the deepest part of your mind, is also unfolding, and deepest things keep on arising all the time and changes everything. It's really super spectacular experience to have that. But everyone is doing that. Everyone, including animals as well. It's a kind of like the universe is unfolding itself and getting better every day, something like that, because that's the kind of movement that it is.
Oh, that's great. That's great.
Yeah.
So,
It's kind of my experience.
you know, all I would say is I would encourage everyone, when you practice Ho'oponopono every day, to definitely meditate also, to link the two together. That's what I've been doing for years, and I highly recommend it. So,
And you,
Yeah. By the way, I'd like to just like remind you that the deeper part of your mind already knows exactly what it's doing perfectly.
right.
And that's a reality for everyone. Even if you're overwhelmed by negatives, it's not actual reality. Actual reality is that you're unfolding.
Right.
That's the nature of it.
Bart, can I try to say the same thing in a different way?
I can't hear.
but you get closer to the mic.
I'm talking right into my phone. Can you hear me?
Yep, we
Yeah,
got
I
you.
know. Yeah.
I call it evolutionary consciousness. Yeah, it's all process because the universe is expanding, and there's a 44-year gravitational wave. The other thing is co-creation. Are we cooperating with God, or are we competing with God? And I think that's just saying the same thing in a different way, but I'd like some feedback on that too.
Well, one of the things is that you're actually not separate from God in the first place.
But when you focus on the negativity, it's like you're competing with God. You're fighting against the natural forces.
No. You can't compete with God. You can't, because it's not reality. You think it is, but it's not even that close. So basically, you're finding out, in a sense, the hard way, if you like, but it's actually not quite like that, is you're finding out how to get home. Home is your deeper mind. And it doesn't have those problems at all, because all those negatives don't exist at all. So the mind is evolving towards that. And one of the problems is that trying to comprehend the deeper reality is virtually impossible, because for example, the love part is totally overwhelming. If you go too far, you'll find yourself in tears on the floor, that sort of thing. So it's a big learning experience, but that's what's happening. That's what's under everything. That's what I thought. That's how I experience it, really.
No, it's very powerful, these concepts.
And working with Ho'oponopono is an incredibly powerful experience of the oneness. It becomes, like a proof of it. It gives you also on an intellectual level a really different understanding of it, that it really is literally true. We all are one. We are all reflections.
One of
And
the interesting things about
our
it,
lives are reflections, as it said in the teaching. Sorry.
one of the things about it is that you don't know actually what it's doing. And the key is you want to get to a point where you actually see it directly, what's happening.
Right.
You know, it's absolutely a step in the right direction, probably for a lot of people. But where the mind really needs to go, or where it's aspiring to go, where it's absolutely totally transcendent of all of that, everything, not just a little of it, but all of it. And that is your own deeper mind. You actually have that reality already. So the exercise is to get back into union with your own deeper reality or heart mind, or how you end up experiencing it. Everyone experiences it differently. So
No, that's great, Bruce. Okay, let's see, we're at the 8:51.
Are there any other comments or questions or reflections?
Yeah, I was gonna start on the Kabbalah, but we're already up against the stops here. It's almost 9 o'clock. So we will defer that till next time. This is going to go into the most mystic side of Judaism, which we saw last year actually had linkages to string theory and physics, no less. So let's hold off on that. It's too much to chew on for one night. Any other comments on anything tonight? Anybody? We'll send out again the handout that Barbara and Cheryl put together, and I'll send out this handout here. Everybody has it.
And links.
And we'll send out the link to the Ho'oponopono music. It's a 10-minute chant, 10 minutes of that group. We just played a little bit of it, so you can listen to that. I do it on my phone. I just have YouTube on the phone, so I can just listen to it. And we'll look around for anything. The links that Barbara used all are there on YouTube, so you can go find them if you have trouble. You want to hear the stuff directly. Maybe that's the right thing to do. Is we'll send those links as well, even though they're embedded in the presentation, so everybody will have everything is standalone. You can just play them yourself.
Maybe we should do that from now on and everybody mute. So we're not trying to listen to one transmission all at the same time. I think that's where you get that kind of wowing.
Well, it's an artifact of, we simply ran a optical fiber here. So we eliminated some problems, but we didn't eliminate all of them. Zoom has its own quirks.
Yeah, I
That's
think
right.
after we've had problems like this before, I did some research on this, and there's some things we can do within Zoom, but it's some technical things that we'll have to do. And I can't think what they are right now, but I know that I did some homework on it and I got, oh, wow. But it's not, I think we can work on this part.
Yeah,
Figure
no,
out.
we will. There's a
We
lot of
had a conversation about it. Now I've lost what the insight was, but I will go back and do some homework to figure out how to do when we share a screen, and for anytime we play video through the computer, how to get it so that it's easier for everybody to hear.
right.
yeah, in my case, I missed most of it.
Oh,
Yeah, it's
Couldn't understand it.
yeah, it's the speech is all turned into bits of little packets of bits, and they get delayed and then they get sped up and to try and catch up, and that's why you're hearing all these crazy artifacts and you can't make out anything. So
Yeah.
stumbling over.
that's
itself.
we'll just we'll send the links so you can you know,
Yeah,
hear everything on your own.
Right.
They're only 5-minute videos. They're there, so it's not the, you know.
Well, I just want to close saying I found Ho'oponopono to be life-changing to my human life. And I think through the really experiential experience of the unity, illuminating of a whole different conceptual understanding as well, that is making new sense to me with what I'm learning with Bart about the interconnectedness on the physics level. You know, and we're working on some diagrams and things. That's a really good learning.
These are just metaphors. They're
Yeah.
words or
But they
little
can be
models.
very elaborate
so-
concepts that can be illuminating, and you kind of get this feeling of, oh, that's what's going on, because there are these connections that don't make sense to the, you know, the common sense consensus reality is, you know, we've all kind of agreed to play the game in Western culture.
Yeah, I think for me, the hardest thing was trying to understand why time has the square root of -1 associated with it, which makes no, you know, time is always different. So Steve Kunstler asked what is going on with the square root of -1. So I found a nice YouTube video, which I posted on our resources there, and you can start to see why, how deep it is. You know, you just go, what are you talking about? Square root of -1? You lost your marbles? What's going on? But you know, there's an artist here at work, and it's a phenomenal piece of art. That's all I got to say.
Well, the deeper level of your own mind is already transcendent of time.
Right.
Right. The thing is, time is so different. You should just tune out on time. It's not really essential. But no one likes to hear that. They say, what are you talking about?
Well, it doesn't really exist.
Well, the thing about it is that there's a complete different way of understanding it. That's the thing about the deeper mind. It understands things from a totally different way that you can't even begin to imagine. And yet that understanding is just a natural part of that reality. It's totally effortless and everything. So it's kind of, you know, you can talk about it. It's, you know, something like that.
Yeah. So anyway, we will catch everybody next week. Have a wonderful weekend. It seems to be getting a little warmer here, get away from the 5-degree wind chill factor and warming up a little bit. So spring is coming slowly. Have a good. Bye-bye.
Like your balloons.
Thank you, Barbara.
Right.
Again.
Thank you, Barbara.
Okay,
Thank you, Barbara,
Thank
Cheryl,
you.
and Bruce.
Thank you.
and Bruce, thank you very much. Thank you.
Good night.
Thank
Night,
you,
night.
everybody.
Good night. Have a
Good
good
night.
week.